Download the AllStar app. Make your picks for UFC fights, challenge your friends, level up and win prizes. Link in description. Get it now. Let's start with this, man. These new rule changes starting in November. I know you won't be able to utilize these in your fight, but I just wanted to get your thoughts on them. The 12-6 elbows are legal now, and I think this one will be interesting. Is the new definition of a grounded opponent? How much do you think those will impact fights?
Oh, I love
Mhm.
these new rules. I absolutely love them. I thought that those were always the dumbest rules. Uh, I can do a flying knee through the air while you're taking a shot on my legs and knee you in the face, but somehow that's not more dangerous than kneeing you while you're on the ground. I'm for knees to the head to a downed opponent 100%, and I'm a grappler. Like I'm down for knees and elbows. I'm down for less rules, not more rules, and I'm super excited about them. One thing that's kind of, you know, frustrating about our sport is that there are holes in our sport. There are things that aren't right in our sport, and it's so hard to change those things because there aren't actually any unified rules. They say unified rules, but every state is different, so it's really hard to get 50 states to agree on
Yeah.
something.
And when you go internationally, it's like super Wild West. You know what I mean? They're like their own commission. Like the promotion is the commission. They hire the refs. They do everything on their own, which is kind of weird though. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, and that's kind of the thing that you're seeing. I'm pretty sure in most countries, and I might be wrong about this, but just from what I've seen, I'm pretty sure most countries that do MMA that aren't UFC shows have different rules. Like, okay, you can knee the head to anywhere. You can't do axe kick. It's really weird seeing some of these guys come into the sports never have thrown elbows before, and some guys coming into the UFC being able to knee to downed opponents. It's kind of insane. I wish there were just a list of rules and everybody follows the same
For sure.
rules.
I completely agree. But you know what I mean? It's MMA. It's so young still though. You know, we don't think it is, but it's still super young as a sport. Like what, 30 years or something? Yeah, 30 years.
Yeah, the sad part is that the sport is finally catching up, and it's going to be one of those situations when I'm done fighting. That's when we're going to get everything figured out. That's when I'm not complaining about fighter pay at all. I get paid very very handsomely, but that's when the rookie guys are going to be making 2-3 million a fight for their first fight in the UFC. I'm gonna retire, and then the day after I retire, it's gonna be like UFC fighters can't be paid less than 1 million a fight. And I'm gonna be like,
You'd
great.
be telling those dudes like, "Yo, I took my lickings for you guys."
Well, I've actually seen it. I've seen it I made $600 for my very first professional fight, and that's like including everything: ticket sales, T-shirt
Wow.
sales, 600, which I'm fine with. And I see some of these kids at ATT; they're making their pro debuts and making 10K, and I'm super happy
Yeah.
for them. I'm super happy for 'em. But it's like, man, it's easier to eat when you're hungry.
Yeah,
So
definitely. Man, you're heading into your 12th UFC fight, 13 if you count the contenders. October 12th. You know, you've become one of those guys that are like sitting in this like not so sweet spot. You know, like right outside the top 15. You know, it's a gift and a curse. What do you think about that position you're in?
yeah, man, I'm in purgatory where the top 15 guys probably don't want to fight me because I'm not ranked and I'm really good, and the guys that are below me don't really want to fight me because I'm really good and I'm not ranked. So it's kind of that weird spot. Luckily, I have a very tough, very game opponent in Garcia or Rafa Garcia. I'm not sure how he says his name, but however you say his name, he's a very, very tough opponent. I have a very, very tough fight ahead of me, and I'm really hoping that I can put on a performance that shows that I can be in the top 15. Because I think if you put a number next to my name, it'll be easier to
Oh,
find me
for sure,
fights.
man. You know, you mentioned Jalen Turner after your last fight. If you did have the number, I'm pretty sure that would have been one of the options that you had. But they gave you Garcia. You know, he has a lot of wins by submission. What do you think of his grappling?
I think he's fantastic. I think he's more of a striker really than a wrestler or a jiu-jitsu guy. I know he does good jiu-jitsu, but you know, I'm not worried about anybody's jiu-jitsu. I'm not worried about anybody's grappling. I think that the only way Rafa, however you say his name, Garcia. I think the only way that Garcia can beat me is if he knocks me unconscious, and I just don't see that happening.
In the post-fight press conference after your last fight, you talked about BJJ versus MMA jiu-jitsu and wrestling versus MMA wrestling. what is more important in this area of the sport?
That's a good question. I think that, look, I used to be of the mind that you should be a B minus everywhere. You should be solid everywhere. And the more and more I do MMA and the more and more I watch these high level guys, the more and more I think that being a specialist is the better thing. I'm never going to be a world class striker. I have good striking. I can mix it up with with anybody, but I'm not a crisp, sharp Anderson Silva uh, style striker. You know, I think it's better to have your game and everything else gets you to that game as fast as possible. So the striking for me, I stay safe as long as I can until I can get the takedown. That's how I'm going to win fights. For somebody like Israel Adesanya, I think it would be, you know, defending the takedown. Like Izzy's never going to win a fight by out wrestling somebody, and he shouldn't. He should focus on stuffing the takedowns, getting up off of his back, and getting back to where he's comfortable. I think that's where the meta is
Do you
right
think
now.
is moving from the striker era to this like Dricus Duplessis style, like where it's like he's good at everything, but his cardio is important as well for that style.
Dracus Duplessis is bad at everything, winning. Like I look, could I beat him in a fight? No. But that dude is he's probably the only champion who's striking I'm better at that. Like it's absolutely insane. And I think this is where your question is going. If I'm wrong, you can say it again. But I think that the meta right now is defensive grappling, good striking. If you look at the champions right now, Pantoja, I would say he's a grappler. Well, I guess Marab just won. I was going to say Sean O'Malley, but Marab just won, so that's a point for us. But everybody else other than Islam is really more of a striker. So it's like even John Jones, great grappler, but he's really a defend the takedown and strike a lot of the time. Volkanovski in his day, defend the takedown, strike the whole time. I think that's kind of where it's at right now. But I do think that I think the reason it's like that is because it's easier to do that. I think that people realize like it's so much easier to just jab and move and strike, and it's not as exhausting as wrestling the whole time. So when you have somebody like me or Islam who don't care about getting tired, we don't care about how hurt we are, we don't really care about how beat up our bodies are, we're going to play our game. I think that that's a really dangerous thing.
Yeah, if I was a fighter and I was in practice and I saw you and you're my next training partner for the round, I would kind of be, I don't know, pissed off a little bit because the pace that you put, it's like you're like you don't want to go through that. Like, I
Right.
know a fighter does, but sometimes you just don't want to. You want some easy rounds, but you can't get it with you.
Yeah, I would say the same thing about the gym that I'm at. E- every round is a difficult round in its own way. You know, you're going with this kid, and okay, he's not as technical as I am. He doesn't have as much experience as I do. He's a little bit younger, but man, he's strong. He's got good cardio, and he's got a willingness to try to beat me. That's a tough round. Okay, but then over here, you've got this guy who's been in it a lot longer than I am, and I might be a little bit more youthful than he is, but man, he's got a load of experience, and he's really, really strong, and he knows how to slow a fight down. So it's really just shuffling, what do I need right now? What do I need? What is going to make me better right now? Is a hard push going to make me better where I need a youthful kid that's trying to take my head off 24/7? Or am I a little banged up? Do I need that veteran who is not only going to push me, but push me in a very safe way where I can kind of open up a little bit more and try new things?
Yeah, and at your gym, American Top Team, you have a slew of training partners, and you're getting ready for Garcia. He has a certain skill set. So, who are giving you the best rounds, like you just mentioned?
Well, I think that Garcia's skill set is very um, mimicable. Like he's not a hard style to prepare for, but what he is hard to prepare for is a hard body type to prepare for. He's 5'7", which is considerably short for 155, and he's got really good takedown defense because of his height. It's hard for taller guys to get under him and get on his legs and take him down. I've seen him fight some really good wrestlers and they've struggled to take him down. So the biggest thing that we're running into is finding guys that are his body type per se, because all the guys that are kind of his height are at lower weight classes, but he's a big dude. So I think that's been the most difficult thing going into this. But in American Top Team, we got some great guys. We got uh, We got who am I working with? Francis Marshall is one of the guys that I've been working with a lot. He's a 45er, but he is a big 45er. He's a very strong, good kid, and he's a very good wrestler. So I feel like being able to wrestle with him, I'm going to be able to wrestle with Garcia. And then my man Charlie, he's been helping me out a lot. He's actually built exactly like Garcia. He doesn't wrestle as much as Garcia, but he's got very good boxing, and so that's kind of who we've been bouncing. And then, I'm always working with Dakota, my man Dakota Bush. I'm always working with all of the guys that are in, and Thiago Moises, working with all these guys, getting it in. My buddy Sadiq has been helping me out a lot. He's a little bit taller than Garcia, but he's very similar style wise.
Your last fight against Joe Selecki, you started off with the flying knee, and then you had to make some adjustments. What were some of the adjustments you had to make on the?
Well, the game plan was to strike with him a bit more, actually. And um, the only thing worse than losing a fight is losing two fights in a row. So it was kind of one of those things. I got in there, we got into that quick scramble, and I realized how easy it was going to be to get him to the ground. And then, yes, he is a puzzle on the ground. But when I just realized that I had such a big advantage in top position and in wrestling, I have to go back to that. And the other thing is he cut my eye, and I couldn't see out of this eye while I was fighting, and I was standing in an orthodox position and I couldn't see him here. And he ended up hitting me, and it was like it wasn't a super hard punch, but it was clean. And I was like, man, I can't see. So I'm gonna get this into the clinch and take him down to where I don't really need to see because I can feel everything. Those are kind of the things that I had to overcome there, but it really was more of a disappointment on a sense of I think I could have done a lot more on the feet, but it was just so easy to get him down. I thought that that was the safest route to go.
Did you see that cut Irene Aldana had? Like the worst cut ever.
I think the entire world has seen that cut. That cut was nasty.
Man, it's disfiguring. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah. I always tell people that there are two injuries that I never want to have in a fight, and that's snapping my shin in half like Anderson Silva,
Yeah.
getting my skull caved in like uh, MVP did it. I can't remember who did it to.
Santos, I think.
Yeah, something cyborg, male cyborg, or something like
Yeah,
that one. And now I've added man like that. Oh, that terrible. It was
nasty.
a horror movie.
Outside of the cut, I mean, how were you physically after that fight?
Yeah, I mean, I was good. I like on a physical standpoint, I was okay. It's just that the blood was in my eye and I couldn't see. And I'm gonna tell you, I had the worst. I don't know if you can see it on screen. I had the worst doctor uh, possible. Dude, he didn't. He forgot to numb me up right here, and he's like putting in stitches. And I was like, whoa, that like that's not numb. I can feel that. He's like, we're almost done. And I was like, all right, I guess I'm just gonna. I'm over there like holding my buddy Dakota's hand and like squeezing the crap out of it because he's sticking this needle in my face with no numbing. And I'm like, wow, that hurts so bad. Yeah, he did a horrible job. It is absolutely gonna break open again at some point.
Damn. Training camp. Obviously, we talked about that a little bit. Your corner, all-star corner. Thiago Alves, man, working with him and developing with him. He's a legend. He fought GSP, man. Like, how is it, developing? How has it been developing your skill set?
Yeah, yeah, Thiago's the man. Like he's literally a legend in the sport, and he was my personal hero growing up. When I was in high school, and I've told him this. When I was in high school, I used to have one of those old blue Razor phones. I don't know if you're old enough to remember those, but I had those, and he was my background for like years. And I was like, I'm gonna be big and buff, just like this guy. And then I grew up and was tall and skinny, but whatever. Uh, Working with him. And the nice thing is, when I got here almost 3 years ago, was when he really started to lay down the gloves and pick up the coaching side of it. And so I'm brand new, and everybody at the gym kind of already had their coaches, and so he was kind of wide open. And I was like, hey, I've wanted to work with you forever. So like day one, I got to get pulled under his wing and work with him and work with Mike. All-star corner, like literally the best MMA coach in the game is Mike Brown right now, and Thiago Alves is going to be one of those best coaches in the game as the years go on. And people unfortunately are starting to pick up on how good of a coach he is, and kind of snagging him from me, which is kind of annoying, but I get it. He's really good.
And also, you've been working your hands with Dyah Davis. How has that been?
Yeah, so this is the first camp I've worked with Dyah. Um, I'm really kind of a you tell me what to do and I'll do it coach. And I work with Pitbull once a week, and then I outside of like sparring, I mean just one on ones once a week. And then he had me start working with Dyah as well, just to really start sharpening up the boxing and staying safe in the pocket. I like it so far. I've only done like 4 or 5 weeks with him, but I really like it. He's got some really good stuff, man. Really, really good stuff.
Yeah, yeah, he works with a lot of good fighters. Garcia, man, he has a lot of decisions. This is a tough fight. You acknowledge that. Could the fans be in for a long night, or do you feel like you could get him out?
I'm gonna try. He's never been finished, as far as I know. He's never been finished in the UFC. Um, but I'm used to that. Mike Trezano had never been beat until he fought me. Jared Gordon had never been submitted until he fought me. Uh, Mark Madsen had never lost a fight in his career until he fought me. And so it's I'm used to that. Oh, this guy's never this or this guy's never that. Like, cool. I'll put that name to the test.
Outside of your fight, the state of the lightweight division, what do you think about it right now at this moment?
It's in a weird spot. It's really in a weird spot. Lightweight is one of those weird weight classes where everybody is so good. Some guys are getting title shots with a couple of questionable wins, and then some guys put on these long win streaks and aren't really getting their crack at it. So it's in a weird spot. We've seen guys like Dariush. We've seen guys like my guy Gamrot. We've seen guys put on these really long win streaks, and they're kind of like, okay, one more and then you'll get it. Okay, one more, then you'll get it. So my job is just to make sure that I'm not in that discussion. Um, I don't necessarily have the most exciting style, but that is something I'm very much working on. It is something that I'm starting to come into. It's just like, not to sound weird, but it's so easy for me to win the way that I win. I understand grappling just so well that it's like I know that if I get you down, you're not going to get away from me. So I can do that for 25 minutes, but I do understand that it's a show and I got to put on these finishes. I got into the UFC and I had never been to the third round before. All of my wins, I was 11-1 with 11 finishes on the Contender Series, and I've got a bunch of finishes in the UFC, but I need to get that finish streak going again if I want to have those big fights that I'm talking about. I need to be super dominant, which I've always been, and I need to start putting on these performances and these finishes.
Your teammate Dustin Poirier, you mentioned that you would like to see him fight Justin Gaethje again, but now him and Dan Hooker are going back and forth. What do you think of that rematch?
I mean, I don't think there's really many strikers that are gonna beat. You know, I don't think so. He's more than welcome to try. Uh, I think it goes the same way. I legitimately think that Dustin Poirier changed Dan Hooker's life with that first fight. Um, I know that Dan's tough. I thought that Gaethje. Excuse me. I thought that Gamrot. Jeez, I couldn't think of his name. He's my friend. I thought Gamrot won that fight. I kind of thought that he got robbed because it was in Perth. That's neither here nor there. But if Gamrot's dropping you with jabs, I think Dustin's gonna put you to bed.
Yeah, it seems like Dustin with age, he's like wine, right? Like he just gets better. Like most guys have a cliff that they fall off of, but he's just consistent.
I think that he's taken his training to a different level. There's levels of training when you're coming up. When you're a young buck and you don't know a whole lot, you need to be in the gym 24/7. You need to be getting those tough rounds. You need to be, doing everything you can to get better and win. And then as you go on in your career, and this is what I'm going through now, is like I'm in the gym every day, but I've gotten a hobby now. I've gotten something that I like to do outside of MMA. So I'm not constantly thinking about my fight and stressing myself out and taking years off of my life just beating myself up. And I think that Dustin's kind of in that scenario. He's not sparring as hard as he used to. He's not trying to knock out his training partners kind of like he used to. He's a great partner to go with now. He's a great partner to spar with. I really enjoy sparring with him. I really enjoy drilling with him. I really enjoy um, being a part of his championship camp. And man, other than maybe Volkanovski, I thought that he gave Islam the toughest fight of his title reign that we've seen. And I think that I think that maybe if Dustin had had a little bit more notice, because he took that fight on like 4, maybe 5 weeks notice, which is kind of nuts for a title fight, and he had to, of course, but I think he could have gotten it done, and I still think that he can mix it up with the best of them.
Oh, without a doubt. One last question. You mentioned that Arman has the best chance of beating Islam, at this moment. If you're the coach, what's the game plan?
If I'm Arman's coach,
Yes.
you stay away from that wall. Uh, Arman can wrestle. Uh, Arman can wrestle in the middle really well. Islam's wrestling in the middle of the cage is not. It's great, of course, it's amazing, it's fantastic, but it's not as good as people think it is. What Islam does is he tricks you into thinking that you can get away from him, and that you can move your feet against him. And what he does so well is he waits until your butt touches that cage, and then he shoots, and he gets you down off of the cage. I don't know how many. I know he had the one at the end where he like tripped Dustin and then got him in the choke. But most of the shots in the center, I'm pretty sure almost all the shots in the center, other than that one, Dustin stuffed. I don't think his center wrestling is world class. I think his cage wrestling is untouchable. So if I'm Arman, who we know isn't going to get tired. He's got a very good gas tank. He's very tough. He's got very good hands. I'm telling him, you stay in the center and you fight him in the middle. You kick a bunch, you fight him in the middle. He's going to try to trick you and move you back to the cage, and you just say no. And if he comes too hard, you shoot and take him down.
Yeah, all possible future matchups, man. This sport goes by so fast. You could win two in a row and then boom, you're fighting those guys. But October 12th, UFC Apex. Grant, thank you so much for taking the time. All the best in the fight. And yeah, man, it's going to be an interesting one. Let's just say that.
Yeah, I can't wait, man. I'm super excited for this matchup, and I'm super excited to be Garcia's first finished loss.